Welcome to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women that replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women in the United States, according to the CDC and NIH. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, or stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, and hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. Freeman, and you'll hear me interview other sisters in loss from around the world who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Storytelling is powerful. Storytelling is activism. Storytelling is healing. Now let's get started. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. This is your girl, Erica Michelle, back with another solo episode. And if you see the title of this, you know why I'm coming to you. It's a party. It's a celebration. Never Healing Alone is finally complete. Cue to a round of applause. We are here. We are done. I am recording this in the beautiful Seattle, Washington. I'm here teaching my class as an adjunct professor at Bastyr University in the Department of Midwifery and Maternal Child Health Sciences. I'm excited about this semester, teaching this winter semester, teaching this counseling for midwifery students in grief and loss. And it goes perfectly with this announcement of my book, because now I'm like thinking of all the ways that I could incorporate this book into this class in the future. And I'm looking forward to marketing, launch, all of the things, book cover reveal, launching team, all the efforts to really get the message out there. So my new book, the working title is Never Healing Alone. Obviously, the main title, I don't think that's going to change. We'll see how the publishers and editors go through that. So Never Healing Alone, for Black women silenced by pregnancy loss when being strong isn't enough. This book explores the ways that Black women can move from harmful tropes, like being a strong Black woman, into healing archetypes, how that we can find our voice, embrace community, and become a multi-dimensional griever, and always be reminded that we are never healing alone. So it is complete. It feels good to say that the manuscript is complete. It's turned in to the publishers, to the editor, and we get to start that process of editing this book down to make it more succinct, and so they can be on a bestseller list, because why not? We can dream, we can hope, we can shoot for the prizes. And those who know me personally have asked me, what do I have planned for next year as far as travel and things? And I'm like, guys, like I have a couple friends who are turning 40. I'm going to go to their birthday parties. But for the most part, we are launching a book, guys. Like, as much as I want to travel, I have like 2 trips I really want to take next year. I just don't think it's in my purview. I think that my goal is to focus on putting this book out in the world. So it should be out in the world in the fall of 2026. I'm shooting for October. Depends on how it goes. It could be a little earlier than October of 2026, but a full year from now is when I'll actually have the book in my hand that I can come back on this podcast and show you all. So yes, you will get a whole year of me promoting this book. I think it's been a year since I launched that I had got a book deal. So it took a year to write it, and then a year to finally officially put it out on shelves. And that is the cycle of how the traditional publishing world works. So I don't want to belabor you all and take you all back on the original journey. I would want you to go back and listen to the podcast that I have linked here in the discussion notes and show notes, that you can hear about how did I get here to this entire publishing process, as it was a process to get here. But there are over 220 pages, over 80,000 words. It's a lot of words in this book that I have turned into my editor. I think we're going to probably end up bringing that all the way down, probably to about 45 to 50,000 words. So that means that I may have a whole nother separate like workbook or journal that may be a supplement to this book that I can publish out there and put it out there for people, because it does have a lot of journal prompts, a lot of affirmations, a lot of work that we should be doing internally to um, not heal alone, and to remove with that banner of strength that looks like that is put on us and that's burdened on us as Black women. We don't have to be strong. Um, you don't have to heal alone. This is not a memoir. I do, or a memoir, as I do share a bit of my story. I want to say that Never Heal Alone is a movement. I use my story and a lot of the stories that have been shared here on the Sisters in Laws podcast to really highlight what those healing archetypes are, and how a lot of the nuanced messaging that we have received since Black girlhood has created this harmful tropes in us, but also how the world sees us in that intersection of what it means to be Black and woman in every system that is built to fail us. So I invite you all, as the reader, as the listener, to really explore who you are in those silent moments. Who are you grieving? Who are you healing? And who are you becoming? Shout out to Michelle Obama, because I talk a lot about becoming. I talk a lot about rest being resistance. Q, Trisha Hersey of the Nap Ministry. I use her a lot of quotes in that chapter around her book. And each part, out of the 4 parts of the book, it's 12 chapters, 4 parts, that it really invites us really to look how these harmful stereotypes and tropes that have been put on us have really shaped how we see ourselves and show up in the world, how we grieve and heal after such painful losses. Although this book is focused on pregnancy loss, miscarriage, stillbirth, infant and child loss, fertility challenges, it can be applied to any losses that we are grieving throughout the world. Particularly when we think about, um, for color girls um, who committed suicide when their strength isn't enough, which is kind of the play on the title for Black women silenced by pregnancy loss when being strong isn't enough. When we think about the strong Black woman or superwoman trope or schema that has been placed on us, it has collectively really caused us to fail time and time again, especially in grief. We don't have to be strong. We don't have to be silent. We don't have to grieve or heal by ourselves. So this book really affirms that we should not carry the weight of grief in isolation, and that being in community is our pathways to transformation, renewal, and healing. I want to read you an excerpt of the book from one of the chapters, because I think that this really hones into why we can't heal alone. Black women are often expected to be everything to everyone: strong, self-sacrificing, unshakable. These expectations don't leave room for vulnerability, softness, grief, or asking for help. That was me. After my loss, I felt I had to be visibly and emotionally strong. I had to find my own way out of this grief I was experiencing, but I had to keep going. I thought healing meant finding a box to fit in, In my grieving and healing, I was wrestling with what it meant to be a strong Black woman in a culture and world that wouldn't allow me to just be me. I was angry. I was furious. I hated my body. I was emotionally shut down. I self-silenced. I grieved loudly. I prayed. I fasted. I turned to God and away from Him. Hello. I knew I didn't want another Black woman or birthing person to experience the ups and downs and mental anguish of losing a baby. I did not fit into a box and mode of what grief was and looked like. I tried to choose the one that explained me best, but nothing quite fit. Not all the way. In the beginning, I was what I would consider myself a silent sympathizer, which is one of our healing archetypes. I didn't have the words yet. I nodded along when people said, it just wasn't meant to be, or you can always try again, or God doesn't make mistakes, or God won't give you more than you can handle, or my favorite, insert rolling eye emoji. God is going to give you double for your trouble. I didn't speak up when doctors rushed me out of the door, when friends didn't check in, or when church folks offered hollow encouragement instead of real presence. I let myself shrink because I thought silence was strength. I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable with my pain. But grief has a way of pushing you, not fast, but steadily. One moment you're sitting at a baby shower holding back tears. Next, you're writing in your journal at 2 a.m. wondering, why am I the only one who remember what today is? That's how I found my way into being a reluctant resilient, another one of my healing archetypes. The woman who showed up to the work, kept it together in public, but collapsed in the bathroom with her when her phone's screen lit up and unread messages blinking. I was strong because I had to be, but resentful of that expectation. I didn't want to be a warrior. I wanted to be held. Over time, I noticed something shift. It was slow, a seed that didn't sprout right away. One day I lit a candle. I said her name out loud. That was the beginning of my ancestral anchor season, another healing archetype. I began to speak to the women who came before me, those who had lost babies in silence, who were told they had to keep moving, who never had time or space to grieve. I grieved for myself and for them. I let my tears be my testimony. And then, without forcing it, I became a hopeful healer. I found myself reaching for joy, not to avoid pain, but to walk beside it. I planted herbs, I planted a garden, I danced barefoot in the kitchen, I laughed in the middle of crying. Joy didn't mean I was over it. It meant that I was alive. And now I live most days as a compassionate catalyst, another healing archetype. I speak my story out loud. I tell the truth. I create space for others. But even now, I carry every archetype that I've ever been. They live inside of me like rings of a tree, each one marking a season, a storm, a stretch of growth. Healing doesn't ask us to pick one identity and stay there. Healing asks us to expand, to evolve, to circle back, to remember. You are not one version of yourself. You are a living, layered, evolving story. Grief is not linear. It is a spiral, a wave, a journey that evolves as we do. These healing archetypes can shift and blend over times. Healing archetypes are not fixed identities. They are fluid, evolving mirrors of how we grieve, cope, and transform. Over time, especially through the journey of grieving and healing, these archetypes can shift and bend and coexist within one person. Grief is not static, and neither is how you move through it. As you grow, heal, and revisit your loss through new seasons of life, you may embody different healing archetypes or feel parts of more than one at the same time. Moving from these harmful tropes to healing archetypes is how we unlearn cultural conditioning to challenge that strong Black woman survivalism, to make space for softness and humanity, and to create identity beyond that stereotype and trope, and reclaim the right that we have to rest, to cry, and to be supported. So I'm excited. So that's a little bit about Never Healing Alone, and me journeying with you all through the 5 archetypes and what they're like. I do have a healing archetype quiz that you can take right now at sistersinloss.com/quiz to figure out where you are on your healing journey. And then we are going to debut some new podcast questions as a result of in this new 2026 year. I'm gonna start asking podcasters who come on the podcast new questions that are around this healing archetypes, and what does it mean to take off the mask of being this superwoman and this strong Black woman, and how when we think about our own healing, what do we think that we could have asked for help for sooner, right? What therapy rituals or practices really help us connect to our bodies, and then how do we find our voice in this cultural conditioning that we have had? I will love to really engage and talk about what healing and community looks like for people. And, what advice do people have, do Black women have when they feel like healing is too big, too heavy, and too much to even start the journey? So I'm inviting you all back on the podcast, especially after you've taken this healing archetype quiz, to really engage with me and really talk about where you are in your healing journey now. Because I think it's always ever evolving as we grieve, as we heal, as we become who all God has called us to be. I start the book in our introduction using Esther's story when she is up to really go on behalf of her nation to Mordecai, to be called for such a time as this. And I really feel like on the precipice, or not the precipice, but really the antithesis of what actually just happened in 2025. I really I took out a lot of what I wrote around Kamala Harris and how she was inspirational because she was called for such a time as this, no different than I am called for such a time as this, no different than you are. I use that example in the book because this is our time to really work on ourselves and really become who God has called us to be in this season, no matter where we are in our healing journey, to take control of what healing looks like for us, what grieving looks like for us, and to find our way to that other side on whatever that looks like. I use the word healing because it is a ongoing process. It is not something that you just get over and move through. You will carry the loss of these babies for a lifetime. How we grieve, how we cope, how we react, how we heal through hard and tough moments is where we as Black women need help and guidance. And my hope and prayer is that Never Healing Alone for Black women silenced by pregnancy loss when being strong isn't enough is an answer to that prayer for you. So I hope that you join me on this journey over this next year in marketing this book. And I invite you to come back on the podcast to share a bit about your story and how you are healing and how you resonate with these healing archetypes. You can find the healing archetype quiz at sistersinloss.com/quiz. And you can join and come back on the podcast, especially if you've been on the podcast previously, or if you are interested in sharing your story. You can easily book a episode at sistersinloss.com/calendar to book your podcast episodes. It's already booked out to May or June of next year. So I would love to interview you and then ask you some of these healing archetype questions based on my new book. So thank you all for rocking with your girl and being a part of this journey. It is such an honor to be held in this space and to be able to share writing a book in general, let me just close with this. Writing a book in general is a defeat. It is like birthing another big project, birthing a baby in a sense, especially since it's taken so long to do this. But I really wanted to make sure that this book filled a void of where I felt like all of the listeners on out of all of these 400 plus episodes that I've done on this podcast, there's always a common theme or thread through all of these. And I've always felt like not being listened to, heard, respected, and valued is one of them. And the other one is the defeat of how we always have to be strong and show up in these spaces even when we're hurting, and we're not given that space to grieve and heal, and how we need each other to do so. So I hope that you all join me on this journey of what it looks like to market, promote, sell, get these books in people's hands over this next year. Never Healing Alone for Black women. Silenced by Pregnancy Loss When Being Strong Isn't Enough is coming out in fall 2026. And I thank you all for your prayers and your support. And I can't wait to take you on this journey. Love you all. Talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For show notes, go to sistersinloss.com to stay connected with us and join the Sisters in Loss community and receive my weekly newsletter. Please go to sistersinloss.com/